Today I'm going to talk about a really interesting subject. There's a subreddit called Malicious Compliance that I thought was actually quite interesting. Malicious compliance really has to do with employees complying with the wishes of management, despite the employee feeling like it's less optimal, sometimes even confusing, and sometimes not even fair. So I'm going to go through a few stories, see what we get. Okay? So, the next, he says, I can't work from home because I go idle in chat too often. Okay. Does this employee have a problem with not being engaged? Well, let's read. It says, as part of the plan to return to office post-COVID, my company has done a lot of redesignating of who can permanently work from home, who can be hybrid, etc. I really wanted to work from home full time. I hate the office with a burning passion. Ooh, okay. It's distracting. It's a long commute. There's no benefit to being there, so on and so forth. I'd just rather be at home. Okay, so he obviously has a strong opinion about wanting to work from home. So let's hear the rest of his story. Maybe there's something more at work here. Okay. Well, when we thought May was going to be back to office time, they started giving out new designations. I got designated as in office full time. I work on a team of 8 people, and each of us is in a different office somewhere in the country. I've literally never been to an in-person meeting or needed to do in-person work in 3 years at this company. Every single other person on my team got designated to work from home. So I brought it up with my boss and I asked him to work from home. What I was told is that I go idle too often in chat to trust to work from home. Well, that's interesting. They're checking his instant messaging app, his chat, in-work chat app. Let's see what else happens here. He says, we have a company-wide instant message system that shows you as available, idle, or in a meeting. If you don't touch your keyboard for 5 minutes, you show as idle. Okay. So they've decided to use this as a measure for who is working and who isn't. Well, wow. Good grief. Our company, the company I work for, rolls out training, for example. And when I'm watching the video for training, a lot of times I'm not touching the keyboard for as much as a half hour to an hour while they're showing a video or discussing a concept. And I would definitely go idle, fairly frequently. There's also other times when I'm, just doing other work that doesn't necessarily have to touch the keyboard. It's interesting that the company would measure the instant messaging app and look for idle time on the instant messaging app as a criteria. The thing is, like many people in many types of jobs, I don't have stuff to do for a full 8 hours every single day. Well, that's typical for my job too, is I'll be really, really busy and get backed up for a while, and then it'll go idle for a while, or not idle, but the work slackens for a little while, and then I'll get busy again. And you live for those times that are that you're overloaded, because that's what you're there for, is to perform during those critical times. He says, okay, so the amount of work I do on a typical day takes 3 to 5 hours of actual attention. That's what the manager ought to be addressing. He says, there simply isn't something to do all the time. My performance numbers actually went up working from home. By all objective KPI numbers, or key performance indicators, I am a better worker at home. In the KPIs that I don't flat out lead the team in, I come in second. I was told that if it weren't for that, they would let me work from home. I assume that means if it weren't for the IM, or instant messaging, going idle so often, they'd let me work from home, because they've obviously documented that he's a good performer. Okay, they know he's a good performer, but this goofy measurement in the instant messaging app goes idle too often, so they're going to make him work from home and basically tell him, we don't trust you. That is a really, really poor message, for one. That is just a poor Poor message. Okay, so I wrote, oh no. So I wrote a 6-line PowerShell script that virtually inputs up the period key every 4 minutes, that starts running every day at 8 a.m. and stops at 5 p.m. So now I literally never go idle. I do the same amount of work and still read books, watch TV, play video games. Okay, on the side. But I have a shiny green check mark next to my name all day long. Okay. Because of COVID complications, they eventually said no going back until after Labor Day. I just had a meeting with my boss, and he said that over this time, they've noticed that I go idle a lot less than I used to. So they're changing my designation to work from home, all because of a little icon in some software. Well, I think there's some issues to address there, but there's not going to be a real honest discussion between that employee and his boss, especially about the I still read books, watch TV, and play video games on the side. Definitely not going to be that honest, I'm sure, because he definitely needs a bit more work to do each day. Okay, that's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one. Well, let's look at the next one here. He says, sorry, I deleted all the files you told me to delete. Okay, this one ought to be interesting. My job was to design and write software prototypes for individual high-value customers. If they liked it well enough, then a real software engineering team would build the real product. So this guy is the front man. He knows how to rapidly prototype. He knows how to negotiate, work with customers. He knows how to put something on the table that works enough like the real product, that if they like it, then they actually get the business and go forward. It says, occasionally I would run a prototype for a few months while the customer evaluated whether they wanted to buy the real product. Okay, so the prototypes are obviously fairly robust if they can run for a few months before a decision is made. She says, okay, having done this work for years, I've accumulated a small disk farm of past projects, which can be very useful when a customer asks for something just like we did last year, but with a small change or two. The company resisted buying hard drives. Okay. But it saves me so much time, I ended up buying 1 or 2 a year myself until I accumulated about 10 of them. Figure over $1,000 worth of external drives. Now, this sounds like an employee that you want to keep. You want to keep this kind of a person forever. He's not only willing to make sure that he does the job as effectively and efficiently as possible, he's willing to actually put part of his paycheck into accomplishing that. Well, it says, then unexpectedly management changes. New management thinks they can replace old software guy, with cheaper new software grad, and I'm laid off. Okay, that has mistake and red flags written all over it. New management that comes in with the idea, and this happens way too much, comes in with the idea, we're going to go ahead and save the company money. We're going to be, top in our division, and we're going to lower our expenses, and we're going to produce more and do better. So they decide to replace some old talent, high expensive old talent, with cheaper new talent. And he says he gets 2 weeks to train his replacement. Well, I do want to hear the rest of this story, definitely. Except I have $1,000 of personal hard drives with old customer data on them. Okay. Company insists that no ex-employees may take any company data off premises. That makes sense. Most companies have that kind of policy. And he says, and all those files must be deleted. Okay. I don't want to just leave the drives at the company, because obviously he paid for them himself, but they insist that I delete all data before taking them home. So he says, you can buy them from me. Okay. And probably didn't go too well, just simply because if they're willing to lay him off to get cheaper employees, they're probably not too willing to buy $1,000 worth of old hard drives that have a bunch of old data on it either. That story doesn't play very well, unfortunately. And obviously, these managers aren't smart enough to realize how valuable these things are and look at all of the indicators around as to how valuable this data is, simply because you've got an old-time employee that's incredibly efficient and he's willing to put his own money into it to buy the hard drives in the first place. So his second option was, I'll eventually use them for something else, but I can leave the data on them in case someone needs it. Okay. Company wanted all that data gone, obviously. Not good enough. New manager insists I must delete all data and all backups before I remove the hard drives. Well, obviously, he says, okay, that's what I do. You know, you're told to do that. It would have been, he could have potentially gotten sued if they discovered that he had the data off the premises, whether it was their proprietary data that they had paid him to create. You know, the employee is stuck doing what he's been told to do. So let's see the rest of the story. Oh, it only took 6 months. 6 months later, I get a series of desperate phone calls. Okay. New software grad has been unable to build any new prototypes. Okay. Old customers are calling to get old prototypes updated, and new software grad has no idea how to do it. Executive VP is calling me to ask what it would take to get my old job back. Well, can you imagine starting over? I mean, he deleted all the data. He's coming back, starting at square one, where he started many years ago. I wouldn't be too willing to take that job back. So what he says is, sorry, you messed up. Exactly like I told you would happen. Hope whatever you saved by hiring that new grad to replace an actual experienced programmer was worth it. And probably hung up the phone and told the story to many of his friends and relatives at the dinner table, and they had a good laugh over that one. Wow. I would not want to have been the management that got into that mess. Definitely. All right. Oh, hey, my editor just told me that I had to shorten these videos, and this one's just getting too long. So how about if you hit that subscribe button, and we'll go ahead and make another video of this, and I'll see you on that next one. Hey, thanks for joining.